Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. In my very last video, I had the distinct displeasure of reporting that the SEC versus Ripple case at the earliest will not be over until March of 2023. Yes, that's the soonest that it's likely to be over, unless there is settlement, and that still is a strong possibility. And so I'm not going to go through this video all of the reasons why this terrible occurrence happening, the extension. I already talked about that, but I do want to share with you some other very interesting things, especially in light of that news breaking. The fact that, according to attorney Deaton, and he said this before that news broke, he actually at that point said it's not likely that Ripple would settle with the SEC, which is certainly an attention-grabbing statement, especially considering what he had said about, that 90-day timer starting once Judge Torres says to the SEC, no, I agree with Judge Knepper, you must hand over the 63 Hinman emails and 68 drafts of the Billy Boy Hinman Ethereum free pass speech, assuming that, of course, the SEC does appeal to Judge Torres. But, Attorney Deaton said that would start the timer. Now, given that this case, because we have official deadlines now, as I reported in my very last video, given that we do now know that this is extended out, maybe he would come back and say, okay, it's more likely we're going to get those emails sooner than later, given the extra timeline. I'm not sure yet. I haven't seen him specifically speak on that. But that's why I want to go to the latest information that we have from him, because the last thing that we saw was that it's actually more likely than not that Ripple's not going to settle with the SEC. But before going any further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say. All right, just an enthusiast here who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And by the way, as we go through this too, you'll see that the SEC, they actually do believe that they can beat Ripple purely on a Howey analysis. Now, on the flip side, of course, Ripple thinks that they will beat the SEC purely on a Howey analysis, the four-pronged Howey analysis, which includes number 1, investment of money, 2, with the expectation of profit, 3, with the common enterprise, and 4, based on the efforts of others. So those 4 prongs, the SEC really thinks that they can prove that there's a common enterprise, or at least that there was back in the day. So what does that mean for XRP moving forward? There's so many interesting things to consider here, and John Deaton tackles all this stuff. But I want to start with this tweet from just the other day from attorney Deaton. He was writing to Mickle XRP, and Mickle wrote the following: I am unable to see any scenario where the SEC would want to take this to summary judgment. Fair enough point. Would the SEC actually want to see this fully adjudicated? Because with Ripple's fair notice defense, isn't that an extreme risk? Well, they might want to go to trial anyway, and that's one thing that we haven't really talked about here on this channel. Most people haven't in the XRP community so far, as I've seen anyway. But actually, yeah, it is the case potentially that you do see this thing go to trial, and fair notice defense never comes up even. So here's what attorney Deaton had to say about that. It all depends on what type of summary judgment. I agree that the SEC does not want to get an adverse ruling on fair notice because of the precedent it would set for existing altcoins. But if it's a strict Howey analysis on XRP, I believe the SEC is willing to go the distance. Whew. Now that's kind of a big news, frankly. Think about this. That means if he's right, and I'm not gonna second guess attorney Deaton here. If he's right, and the SEC really does think that they can beat Ripple on a strict Howey analysis, and then you just kind of wonder, like, even if they can win, would it be for specific sales from back in the day? Would it be moving forward? And attorney Deaton also wrote this: with that said, if they have to turn over the Hinman 68 draft emails or a ruling on fair notice, I agree they settle. So think about that. That seems to me, if I'm picking up what he's putting down here, it seems as though the case could start. We could start the process, and then you could see after Howey analysis, or leading up to it, even if the Hinman emails, they actually are forced at that point. Hopefully it's before that. I don't know for sure based on the timeline, but they could change their perspective on that. And in getting into the specifics of why it might be likely, at least as of a couple days ago, why Attorney Deaton said, hey, more likely than that, Ripple's actually probably not going to settle. There is this article from Finance Feeds tackling just that, and I wanted to run through it. As Ripple and the SEC prepare for the next chapter in the XRP lawsuit following the court's final ruling on the deliberative privilege process, I think isn't it deliberative process privilege? Maybe I'm backwards. Whatever. I'd have to Google it. Ordering the SEC, I'm nitpicking, ordering the SEC to ultimately produce emails and notes related to the 2018 Hinman speech, John Deaton has turned to Twitter to provide some insights on what to expect. John Deaton, an attorney that represents over 65,000 XRP holders in the SEC versus Ripple case, has previously said that the lawsuit would come to an end within 90 days from Judge Torres affirming Judge Netburn's decision. So let's pause and note, that's what I was talking about at the outset of the video. If indeed the SEC appeals to Judge Torres and Judge Torres says, yeah, sorry, but this is like the third time we're telling you now, you really must hand over the Bill Hinman emails and drafts of his speech related to the Ethereum free pass. You really must do that. If that happens, Attorney Deaton does still think that that there would be some sort of settlement. And that's why, again, this was before we found out that the timeline, the official timeline, which is now set in stone, pushes out until March of next year. That's why I'm saying maybe that part would shift a little bit as a result. But here's a quote from Deaton. I still stand by that. However, I didn't really consider Ripple insisting on summary judgment without the emails and documents. In hindsight, it makes sense, end quote. And I think part of the reason it ended up making sense in hindsight is because basically you're getting the wheels in motion. And the goal anyway was to get specific dates set. And yes, Ripple was hoping the dates would have been sooner for summary judgment in every aspect of this case. But still, just getting that in motion, and then as other things are moving along, yes, eventually if there's an appeal and then it's in favor of Ripple, yes, the emails would still have to be sent. That would be the ruling anyway, so you could just get things moving. But then there's this quote also from Deaton. The emails and documents are most relevant to fair notice. Ripple can win on a strict Howey analysis, and if they do, the court never has to decide whether Ripple received fair notice. I can now see there being no settlement, and the parties let the judge decide via Howey. And then he continued, adding that settlement is less likely than the XRP lawsuit ending with a judge decision. And so think about it. If there's less at stake, if a decision is going to be made purely on Howey analysis, still, I don't know how the hell the SEC thinks that this is going to go in favor of them. But okay, maybe if it's for limited sales, maybe they can pull something off. I don't know. If you're talking about XRP itself, whether or not XRP is a security, just by the nature of existing, no, hell no, that would be completely absurd. But was it sold as an investment contract back in the day based on those prongs? Maybe they can pull off. I don't know. And that wouldn't be as alarming to me. I just don't want XRP to be banned in the United States forever from being traded. That would be ridiculous. No, not that I think it's going there. I'm just saying. But think about it. If that happens, not it being banned, but if there's this analysis, the Howey analysis, then no fair notice, there's way less risk to the SEC at that point. And here's another quote from Deaton. In other words, view the fair notice defense as insurance. It's an insurance policy that kicks in if Ripple loses on Howey application. Thus, I'm leaning on no settlement and a decision by the judge. The timing of a decision depends on how long it takes Judge Torres to decide, end quote. Exactly. So it does kind of make you wonder, too, if, it depends if things don't go well for Ripple and Howey. At that point, I mean, presumably the SEC is still kind of committed because Ripple does still get to argue the fair notice defense even if they lose on Howey. Kind of interesting to think about that, right? Which means that they could still win. If they didn't get fair notice, this whole thing's over, right? Anyway, the piece continues. John Deaton further explained that the Securities and Exchange Commission has much more to lose if Ripple wins on fair notice and will keep on delaying as much as possible. By focusing on a Howey analysis, Ripple removes, quote, the last bullet from the SEC's gun, end quote. And here's another quote from Deaton. I can assure you the SEC would rather lose the case on a strict Howey analysis than on fair notice. If she rules Ripple lacked fair notice, most altcoins traded for the last 7 years have a blueprint for victory. If the court finds XRP not a security, it applies only to XRP. That's interesting, isn't it? So less risky if it's just a pure Howey analysis right there. So you can see the potential routes that this could go. There are so many moving parts to all this, which is why I wanted to make a video just kind of breaking this down. Really appreciate John Deaton's insight on all this. It's pretty incredible here. And then he said, Ripple could also move for partial summary judgment on certain issues. For example, Ripple wants to win on a straight Howey analysis before ever getting to the fair notice issue. Maybe Ripple moves for summary judgment on today's XRP. Bottom line, this is a smart move. The SEC has only one area of leverage over Ripple: delay. This is Ripple moving the last bullet from the SEC's gun. And of course, at this point now we know exactly what the timeline looks like, and it's much worse than what everybody was hoping for, including all the attorneys within the XRP community. We were all pretty surprised, a bit shocked to see that. But in hindsight, even that ended up making sense. And I don't want to get into it again. I explained in the last video because I shared the perspective from attorneys within the community. But having the benefit of hindsight, it became pretty clear that if certain dates weren't agreed to by Ripple, there was a reasonable chance, a very high chance, perhaps you could argue, that the case, despite the fact that we hate that it's probably going to end in March of next year now, it could have been even worse. There's actually a probable chance, based on what I saw from the attorneys within our community, it actually would have been worse if Ripple didn't give in right there. So they did. And that was probably a reasonable move. Just like, I know we don't like the dates, but still, it could have been worse. So I frankly kind of not blaming him there. Really steams my vegetables, folks. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.